Recording in progress.
And we do have to share just in case. So I would say the meeting is called to order at 5:32. And we'll begin with roll call.
Jake Dunnigan, committee member, present.
George Mato.
Pante Amras. Corinne Piazza.
And Clayton Potter.
Approval of minutes, there's none. And we're going to go to new business.
Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you, Pantea. We're going to pull up the screen for anyone who may be following online. We are pretty pressed for time, so while Clayton is doing that, one more. I'll get started. All right, so in our presentation for you as the EAF subcommittee this evening, we'll do a quick overview of the EAF. We went over this last month a little bit, but we wanted to refresh memory. The role of the subcommittee. We'll do a quick overview of past projects and their awards. We'll also go over the application we're discussing this evening, the project eligibility for you, how we arrive at the award amount determination for the policy, and we'll go over your recommendation options this evening and next steps. And in the interest of time, please just hold any questions to the end because we do have 30 minutes, and there's a really good chance we're going to cover what you might ask in this slide. Excuse me, presentation. Great, next slide, please. Okay, Economic Assistance Fund, a one-time financial reimbursement for public infrastructure improvements for business development expenses associated with business opening, relocation, or expansion, facilitates the development of business that creates jobs, increases tradable sectors, generates new significant taxable property, and the EAF guidelines are what directs this whole process. So our staff review, your review as a subcommittee, and then once it goes to town council as well. So for the application review and your role this evening, we review the initial application. We work with the applicant to identify if there's any additional information needed, and we identify that qualifying award amount that you'll see this evening and that you saw materials that we sent ahead of time. And this is all in line with the guidelines. Then you play that advisory role in reviewing and recommending the application to town council. If it were under 10 grand, we could do that administratively, but because this one's higher, that's where you come in. After reviewing the application and how it meets eligibility requirements, you may decide to endorse the application. If so, it goes to the full EDC this evening after this. Then it goes to town council, then committee of the whole. And if they approve it, then it goes to town council to be finalized. We did want to note that the total balance for the EAF at this time is a little over 406,000. And then on a side note, there's been some questions from subcommittee members as to the process, with this being the first one we've done in a while. So rest assured, you have everything you need tonight in front of you with this presentation to make a decision. And some background for what we did in preparation. We've done a deep dive into the policy. We've also looked at the process and previous awards as a precedent. And we also work with Lauren Post, who's our economic development tech. She's been with us for 10 years and has processed every application up till now. So she has a lot of experience that she brings to the table. Also, our director, Jim Reiner, another 10 years here and assisted with this policy. He's reviewed this as well. And we work with some previous employees just to go over that process again, since we haven't done one since 2020. So put that in perspective, over like 50 years of experience looking at this one, this one application. And if it's even slightly packaged differently, you have everything you need this evening to make your decision. All right, next slide, please. So for the guidelines, you'll see this in the chart where we break down the numbers, but overall, the total award may not exceed 2 years worth of anticipated local tax revenues, and there's no more than 50% of overall project costs can be awarded, and the value of the requested funds, is that saying 50% of total project costs. We also looked at precedents. We went back through the last 5 that were approved. And those previous awards, there's an emphasis placed on supporting infrastructure improvements that exceed the life of that specific project use. So when we talk about are the infrastructure improvements related to public benefit, that's what we have in mind. So if this use were to go away, does this infrastructure help any use coming in after, so the town's not paying for that? And the final precedent piece is most of the projects that have been approved all received about half of their request, not their full request. So for an overview of those past projects, in 2020, we had E.S. Goodman with 3 Water Street, or the standard. That was for infrastructure costs for new mixed-use commercial and residential. We had Sip Bake Shop 2019, same thing, infrastructure costs for commercial kitchen addition. We had Grand Wine and Spirits for 2019, infrastructure costs in new commercial construction. Rogers Development at 2018 with infrastructure costs in new residential. And then CrossFit in 2018 for infrastructure costs in new commercial fitness facility. And now Clayton will take you through just at a high level the application, as well as how they met the qualifications, how we backed into that number that we are recommending be approved, and then your next steps.
So this is a screenshot of the application with the answers to the 3 main questions. The first question is to provide a brief narrative description of the project. This is a new 29-unit residential building, 3 stories plus 1 ground level parking garage, and the project creates 1 full-time job for a property manager. The second question is how will the requested funds be used? They mentioned the infrastructure improvements, including various site improvements, including EV, electric vehicle chargers, water and sewer service extensions, telecom connection, curb cuts, street lighting, stormwater upgrades, including oil separator and retention pond, underground utilities, and new transformer. Describe how this project meets the goals, eligibility, and selection criteria set forth in the program guidelines. This project is a small business enterprise located on Route 12 in Groton's key commercial area, providing 29 new market rate residential units in close proximity to the subbase. Owner, general contractor, and many subcontractors and suppliers are Groton based. So in the next slide, we'll talk about how the project meets the criteria and preferences from the guidelines as well, from our point of view. And then I also want to mention that the application does include a project information section, which asks for quantitative info, and you'll see most of those numbers 2 slides away, I think. Cool. Yeah, so the project eligibility is right here. So the first 3 bullet points under required criteria are just that. All applications must meet these 3 criteria. Must increase the local tax base, must create and or retain jobs within Groton, and must conform to the zoning regs and the most recent plan of conservation and development. This project will do all 3. You'll see the projected anticipated increases in the tax base. We know it's going to create 1 full-time permanent job for a property manager, and it'll meet the zoning regs and already aligns with the PLCD. There are additional evaluation criteria in the guidelines that applicants can meet for preferred considerations, which is the second set of bullets, but they're not required. Still, this project meets 4 of these considerations, which all are in purple. So the project is located in one of the town's targeted development areas, 12. 1 or more nearby parcels will be made development ready through the project. A portion of the project costs utilize other public funding sources or incentives, and the value of requested funds is no more than 50% of total project costs. Thank you. And now all the numbers for you. So this is definitely some of the key information to consider as part of your decision-making process. These numbers come from the candidate's application and through the research by staff. On the left, we have all the costs and values associated with the project. On the right side, there's notes of how these figures apply or align with the program guidelines. So total project costs, $6,041,000, and that's the projection from the applicant. The 50% of the construction cost is $3,020,500, and the award cannot exceed that figure. The current taxes generated every 2 years amount to $13,894, and we anticipate that will increase significantly post improvements. The total infrastructure costs amount to $241,654, and that was also the requested amount for the award. The qualifying infrastructure costs, those we determined have public benefit, amount to $123,854. And the anticipated tax revenue generated every 2 years is $119,344.12. And the award cannot exceed 2 years of anticipated tax revenue. So that was one of those criteria from the guidelines. So that is the proposed project award, and it's the maximum award amount, $119,344. So we have your recommendation here. The EAF subcommittee can recommend endorsing an award of $119,344.12 to assist in project specified infrastructure costs. The EAF subcommittee cannot recommend endorsing an award to support the project's infrastructure costs. We have the next steps again. And we do have a breakdown of the infrastructure costs and the ones that we recommended be supported as well.
And with that, we can jump into discussion or any questions that you might have. And just as a reminder, we just want to kind of dive into this application this evening. And if there's concerns about the policy overall, we can note those and, take those as an aside. All right. Does anyone have any questions from the materials they had to review? Or have at a certain point, we'll make a motion for your decision as well.
So the first question I have is, you present two options. Are those the only two options? Is it an up, down vote? Is that our limit of our recommendation hours?
As yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, essentially, so staff's recommending 119. If you wanted to, I don't know, dive into numbers or something like that, you could, but what would happen is we'd stand by our numbers of staff and both recommendations would go to council. So you can't really go over 119 because that's
Right.
the maximum amount. So if you wanted to do less, you could, and then essentially that recommendation would say, here's the staff report, here's the subcommittee's recommendation, and the council would essentially choose between the two.
And then as far as a program requirement, this money doesn't get to them until the work's done, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And they have 2 years to finish construction, and then they have an extensive amount of documentation they have to do with it as a reimbursement.
Got to show the invoices.
Yeah, okay, that I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't yeah, go ahead, here's the money.
Right. We also, our building inspector as part of it, views the site and checks off that those specific things were done. So there's even that stuff.
A lot of checks and balances.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, the ones that you guys highlighted are all, like, I know it's, the money is funded as soon as you hand it over to somebody, but they're all essentially public except for the water and electric hookups. I'm not so sure that that's a public benefit, but, but
So unless it like helps with flooding or stuff like that.
yeah, but the sewer, maybe I get it, but
Yeah.
yeah, but the water is just like, you need the water to run that building, not like future buildings unless they're.
Is this something that they're gonna expand upon?
Yeah, are they improving anything that's gonna then lead to other projects, or is this just the water to their apartment?
Well, it would be, but then accessible for future use, essentially.
So it gets to the point of going beyond the life of this project. So the kind of hypothetical that John Varner uses is if this project totally collapses, that public infrastructure is still there for the next use on that site.
So generally like water and utilities are just considered.
It's ready to go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you could recommend if you weren't comfortable with that, you can, as I mentioned, you could say, okay, we don't agree with that as a public benefit, and then our numbers.
Because the street lighting, the curb cuts, the repainting, like all that stuff, make that, yeah, an improved sidewalk, I can go walk on that. Right, like that makes total sense to me. 100% on board. I just didn't.
Sorry, we're working on the subcommittee meeting.
Oh, you're in something. No.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, you- yeah.
it's not executive. You can hang out, just it'll
Okay.
just be this decision.
So, yeah, I don't want to belabor it too much, but to me, there are a couple of items on here that don't communicate well to me that it's actually a public benefit.
Like which one?
like the water and the sewer service directly to the building. Like, if it was for the connection to the main line, okay, I could buy that. But if it's to dig a trench to put the water service into the building that they're building, it's not. The town doesn't.
Clayton, how does that sync with what we did before for Rogers and Grand Spirit? Did we pay?
Yes,
We did?
yep,
We approved that?
yes.
We already have we did do that before, so there was a precedent. So we paid to connect it.
Yeah, so those are some of the two that stand out in other referrals that have passed to council. And
So we did it before, so we should go forward with that.
Okay, so
Because
if I
we've done
have
it.
one pack of cigarettes, a second one, I should really enjoy even more because I already smoked one, so.
Because we.
I get it. You want businesses to be able to predict what they're gonna be able to get. I understand.
Yeah, long ago, I and a couple others crafted this thing. So the idea was like what Clayton has said. By investing in that infrastructure now, it pays for whatever it may be future. If the developer screws up or goes bankrupt or whatever, somebody else can take over. At least we could say the utilities are already in there and it's already connected. So all you can do is fix the place up, buy it and fix the place up. It's easy to sell on top of it. So we want to market those eventually if it fails.
Are you saying that an apartment building is easier to sell if it has indoor plumbing? 'Cause I would
Not
definitely
indoor,
agree with.
to the building, to the building,
Yeah, okay.
to the building, not, that's.
Yeah, but that's you can't have it. in the
No, you
building.
can't, no, not that. So like Rogers, we did not do that.
Right. It just, to me, it seems like it's only
Yeah,
benefiting.
yeah, you're right. So we don't do just up to the building.
Okay.
That's,
So, and I'm being pedantic. I know that's my job.
no, thank you.
But like, to me, the stormwater is a much more public benefit than the installation of water service to the building. It's not even the number that's driving my concern. Although I do have some concern with 2 years of taxes. If the town is still borrowing money, I'd want to at least correct for our borrow rate, but that's for how long the project's gonna last, but I don't have numbers prepared, so I'm not gonna do that to everybody. But I think in the future, it should be a consideration, how long is this project gonna last for? And if we have to borrow money in order to give them money, I know that we have it in the fund, I get that, but money is fungible. So like, to me, correcting for that borrow rate would be something I would want to do, but like you said, I don't want to get too much into the policy, so. I guess I would be okay because they're gonna do that much public work. It's just maybe not the way that it's described here.
Well, and that's up to you as the committee with, to George's point, the precedent of allowing for, different utility setup is usually considered. But if you want to replace that with stormwater or one or the other, and that's up to you as a group. But I think the precedent does play an important role as it aligns with previous policy approvals and kind of the spirit of that intent.
So then, are the white boxes, things that did not qualify or that you just didn't choose as to get to your 19 or to your 123?
So essentially, that's the same as like, that's not what qualified and what does qualify out of the 240 is the 123. But the reason it's 119 is because that brings in.
That I understand.
Okay.
So, but my question was, whether you were trying to get as close to what the 119 as you could, or if stormwater literally would not qualify.
Yeah, so there's 123 qualifying without stormwater. If you added stormwater, it wouldn't matter because you still cap out at one thing.
I completely understand it. Let me ask a more direct question. Would stormwater improvements qualify?
Oh, overall, we didn't feel like they did in this scenario.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
I could have
Gotcha.
been. So I couldn't even really.
I feel like, don't worry, you're not late. We're just finishing a subject.
Okay, I spoke way too much stuff.
You did great.
You guys have other questions?
We have about
That did.
No, I think this is really well done, the analysis of it. And I think I mean, if we ended up doing stormwater over that, it ended up being more, but we'd still be at 119. So I think, and they've applied because they're involved with SIF too. So out of precedence and consistency, and we want this because this is long-term and really good benefit. So do we do a
Hang on,
vote or George
how much money is left?
About 406,000.
minus 119?
Yeah, minus this one. If it were to be approved.
So still over 200 a quarter.
We're giving away one quarter almost, slightly more than a quarter, what's left in the fund.
Sorry, what's that?
You're giving off slightly more than a quarter of what we have in the fund.
Is there any other applications in the pipeline?
Not
No.
And we haven't issued.
We haven't received any in a while either.
I think
Okay.
2020 was the last one, so.
So there are two things I don't know whether that qualifies. One is I know I should not be speaking about this GU matter, but the transformers, I don't know whether that is qualifiable.
It's not, it's listed as not.
Yeah, so just for your reference, and also for the EV charger. So that,
But it's not on there.
Yeah, which they also took out, yeah.
so those two, you don't need to put it down because those. two-
Right, so for everybody's clarity, this list is the total,
Refined
all
list,
the
yeah.
infrastructure plans that the applicant submitted. We are only recommending or qualifying those that are in yellow. Those that are in white are still part of the plans, but not components that we're including as part of the.
And some of the pieces mentioned in the application were just an overall project summary versus just the infrastructure costs.
Yeah. So, come to think of it, it's already May, so we already finished one quarter of the year, so we spend one quarter of the money for one quarter of the year. We are still good. And I see that Chelsea Groton given him the thumbs up. And he's done some work in Mystic, a couple other places, so his reputation has been good as well.
He's actually received an award in the AF.
He did the SIF building and the Water Street building.
Yeah.
And the Niantic.
So I think the biggest qualifier for me is Chelsea Groton, giving the money as conservative as they are. So they bettered the chap. So I'm in agreement to fund the full amount of 119 and get the production happening because God knows with the tariffs, things may go up next month.
I think with that,
So Corinne, do we do a subcommittee vote or just say Thursday? I'm also in favor of that.
and then, I think if you make a motion, you can just say we're motion supporting the full amount for the application.
Does it have to be unanimous?
It does not.
Are you voting against it?
Grandpa?
Hey,
For precedent's
Lolo,
sake,
Lolo,
I'd like
Lolo.
for people to apply, and make one. I would like to, also why I wouldn't here, like, can we make them?
Well, and I think that's a different issue because again, if we added that, they still can't.
No, I get it,
Right,
I get it.
For voting against this project versus. the policy. I think the question would be,
Back there.
You approve 119, yes. Additional concern. Back.
Well, it's gonna pass anyway, so I'll be.
Okay.
Yep. I make a motion to vote,
All in favor?
Or-
seconded, right? We need,
Second?
yeah.
Great, and I think just the motion would be that you vote to support the agreement with Rebecca. Motion to fund the 1119. That's right. For the PDF application for Yiska.
Do you want us to say that? So, motion in support of the full recommended amount of $119,344.12.
I agree.
You have to second, he has to second it.
I did that earlier.
Oh, okay, all right.
All in favor?
No, you're not even in this meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what meeting we're in. Are we early or are we late? It's a pre-meeting.
Okay, and then take your vote.
I'm gonna stay.
Okay, so it passes 2-1. Excuse me, yes, thank you.
I will be less of a stick in the mud, just be a little muddy.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I think at that point we can adjourn. And we will, I think there's the other item on there is old business. There isn't any for this meeting. We'll turn off this recording and then we open the EBS to one. So thank you so much to.
Well done. Thank you.